My name's Jim Dawsey, and I am a partner at Dawsey and Jones Law Firm here in Conroe, Texas. And today's presentation is really the intent is to tell you about a new law that's coming into play starting January 1st, 2024, called the Corporate Transparency Act. Okay. First thing I wanted to kind of go through is really just to tell you that we have talked to a few different people about the Corporate Transparency Act, probably 10, maybe 15 different people, and all of them, we've had kind of the same reaction, and that is first, denial, and that is, surely this cannot be true, that this is a real thing. But we have to tell them, yes, it is a real thing. This is coming. It is law. And as one of my another attorney buddy that I have said, it's too late to call your senator on this one. We have anger, and that me too. So I actually have several entities myself, and I'm kind of confidentiality and is very important to me, not only for myself but for my clients. And when I hear about this, it makes me mad too. But we just kind of have to come to the next stage, which is bargaining. Again, this is not going to change. This is law that's coming in. You can be depressed about it and think that it's not going to happen, but that's only for so long. This law is coming into play January 1st. And so really what we're trying to do today is to help you understand, okay, what do we actually need to do? So today we're going to kind of tell you about the Corporate Transparency Act, what that entails. We're going to tell you what entities are going to be subject to those new regulations, tell you what is actually going to be required for this, and then finally, we're going to tell you what happens if you don't actually comply. Okay, starting at the top, what is this CTA thing, Corporate Transparency Act? Basically, this has come from regulations that first started over in Europe. So I've had experience helping certain clients start businesses in different countries. And one of the things that you know when you start businesses in different countries is that the requirements as far as the ownership of those entities is significantly more than it is in the United States. In the United States, we don't actually have to file or tell anybody who the owners are except on the tax return. Well, apparently the United States has become a hub of money laundering, and because of this, and so our government is enacting new regulations in order to provide transparency into the ownership of entities. And so there's a federal group called FinCEN. FinCEN actually is a department within the Treasury. And basically, it's kind of a sister organization to the IRS. And that is who is going to be enacting this new regulation. All right, so let's kind of talk about who actually this applies to. Okay, the long and short of it is that this basically applies to almost every entity that you may own. There's certain exceptions, but single member LLCs, family limited partnerships, your local print shop that just has a few employees. You may have a company that does real estate development. So you can kind of tell this is very wide-ranging, and from what I had seen in some of the data, it actually is going to apply to almost 33 million businesses across the United States. Some of the exceptions to this are trusts, but if you have a trust, the trust itself is not going to be a reporting company, but if it owns a company, the company is. Some of the other exceptions are basically revolving around companies that already have significant reporting requirements with federal agencies like banks, credit unions, insurance companies. If you have to file some SEC, right, so you're an issuer of securities at the SEC, governmental entities. There is an exception for what they call an inactive entity, and that is if you form the entity prior to 2020, it has no revenue. So a lot of us have these LLCs that maybe we've been keeping on the sidelines for a long time. That's an inactive entity. And then also large companies. Large companies, in this case, would be over 20 employees and more than $5 million in revenue. So those are not going to have to comply with this. But pretty much everybody else will. Okay. So this is just a very short video from FinCEN. That FinCEN is the group, the Federal Enforcement Network, that they put out to kind of describe what this actually is. Okay, so as you probably saw through the video, basically FinCEN has put this, is enacting these new regulations, and they are going into place on January 1st. I hope everybody is uplifted by that music that they provided there. But I guess the main thing here is if you're a reporting entity, you're going to have to go along with these regulations. But the other important concept is what is called a beneficial owner. So a beneficial owner, you'll see, is actually pretty wide-ranging. So it's somebody who directly or indirectly, through a contract, arrangement, understanding, relationship, or otherwise, either substantially controls the reporting company or owns at least 25% of the ownership interest in the reporting company. So if you can kind of imagine, that's more than just the actual ownership of the entity. These are people that control the entity as well, not just through a formal arrangement, but also through a contract per se. So say you have a CEO or a CFO or somebody that a manager of the company that doesn't own the company, they too are also a beneficial owner. Also, the people that aren't necessarily controlling the entity on a day-to-day basis, these are also beneficial owners if they own more than 25% of the company. So the long and short of it is that information, which I'll show you here in a second, about any of these people are going to be reported to the government under this new regulation. Okay. So the first piece of information that's going to be reported is actual information about the entity itself. So the legal names, addresses, jurisdiction, that kind of thing. The kicker really revolves around these beneficial owners. And so as you can tell here, there's some pretty confidential information that's going to have to be submitted to the government. Name of the person, date of birth, actual residential address, a copy of their driver's license or passport information, an actual and a digital copy of that as well. So you can imagine if there's more than a few owners in the company, this can be pretty onerous. And then finally, there's a concept that they're introducing called a FinCEN identifier. We have a lot of clients that own multiple entities, and the idea behind this is you can get a FinCEN identifier where you provide this confidential information once, and then with each entity that you own, you can use this identifier rather than providing that information each time. Okay. Key question here is when? When are we going to have to actually do this? For existing entities, starting on January 1st, 2025, they would need to register by January 1st, 2025, starting 2024 to 25. So they have that year. For new companies, the original rule was 30 days after formation, and that is the default rule. Actually, today, the government rolled out a new update and proposed rule change that for new entities that are formed in 2024, then they'll have 90 days to file this report instead of just the standard 30 days. But after 2024, this goes back to the standard rule of 30 days. For any changes going forward, so say you have an LLC that you sell a piece of it to somebody else, or you transfer some of it to a kid or a brother or somebody else like that. Within 30 days of making that change, you have to refile and correct the filing with FinCEN. So it's an ongoing requirement. One of the things that you'll see here is that the government is actually very serious about wanting people to comply. And that includes civil and criminal penalties. Now, there's a lot of people that would question, how serious is the government on this? Are they really going to enforce this? How are they going to enforce this against everybody? Well, we don't know that. We just know what they've told us, which is for each entity that you fail to file, it could be up to a $500 a day penalty, and up to a criminal penalty of $10,000 or 2 years of imprisonment. So you can see they are very serious about this potentially people misrepresenting or not providing that information on ownership. So what do you do now? The first is that you should be talking with your CPA, financial advisor, attorney to make a plan. So this isn't, for each one of these entities that are going to be filed, it's not a huge amount of work, or it doesn't seem like it's going to be a huge amount of work, maybe an hour or two per entity. But probably the biggest thing on this is that you shouldn't delay. So just to kind of give you an idea, over the years, our law firm has formed thousands of entities over the years. So if it takes an hour or two per entity for us to actually do these filings for our clients, you're talking, say there's 2,000 entities that we have to do, that's potentially 4,000 hours of work next year in 2024 that has to happen. That's like 2 to 3 people doing nothing but this at my law firm next year. That's going to be across the board. And so, as you can probably imagine, people aren't going to immediately start doing this January 1st. They're probably going to delay, and people will wait until the last minute. Well, I can tell you, there is not enough people that work at law firms and CPA firms and financial advising firms that are going to be doing this that will be able to help you at the end of next year. There's no way. So the best thing you can do is to get ahead of the game. Go ahead and get the filings out of the way early in the year so that you're not going to be one of the people at the end of the year waiting for your financial advisor, attorney, CPA to help you with these filings. And then finally, we have, as part of our a separate company that we've developed called VentureVault. We're actually looking at the regulations and adding this as a function of a separate company that we'll show you right now. Just in this real short video. All right, here we go. So at this point, I just wanted to thank everybody for joining. We're still learning what's actually going to be required for this Corporate Transparency Act, and as you probably saw, we're even getting things even today, new updates to the rules, filing deadlines, things like that. One of the things that they haven't told us is that it's actually how to do the filing. They've told us when, they've told us what, but they've basically said that these reports that will be filed to FinCEN will be online reports of some kind that will be uploaded to FinCEN. That's all that we know, which is kind of crazy since it's already almost October. One thing that I had failed to mention is that this information is supposed to be kept confidential, similar to the IRS, although they have said that they will be sharing this information with the IRS and other administrative security-oriented entities within the government. So without further ado, if you have any questions, please feel free to email Carly. Her contact information is down there. Or if you're interested in talking about VentureVault, we have the link down there as well. We will be providing this presentation online that you can share with others. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to us.